Season 1 Mimosa, still one of the best healers in the game, one of the only healers with a resurrection at this point in Global, and she is going to be viable for a long time to come. Now, is she kind of outshined by Charmy, who gives healing continuously and also defense on her special? Yes, a little bit. I would say Charmy is probably the better healer right now and more meta, but if you lack Charmy, I feel like Mimosa is still a very solid option when it comes to PvP and really good in PvE. So today we're going to talk about all of her skills, what skills you should be upgrading first. We're going to talk about which skill cards are the best on her, what gear you should be putting on her, if you guys should be enhancing her or not, and then what talents you should be doing for her talent tree. And then last but not least, we'll talk about what teams she could potentially fit on for both PvP and PvE. So for skill 1, it is called Plant Energy, and it grants the ally with the lowest HP ratio HP recovery equal to 150% of own magic attack. You're going to see that a lot with her skills, that they're based on magic attack. So when we get to the gear part, it should be no surprise that a lot of the gear is going to deal with magic attack. I'll explain that more when we get there though. And then a 45% chance to grant a SP +1 buff to an ally whose HP has been recovered. This is really good because this is going to help recover their special move gauge faster, which is really nice. And then for the upgrade effect, it just upgrades how much HP recovery you do. So this is actually one of the skills you want to upgrade last because it is single target healing. The other skills, like this one, do AoE healing, and it does the same thing, upgrading HP, how much you heal. Same with the special. So skill number 1, upgrade that last. For skill 2, it is called Flower Garden, grants all allies HP recovery equal to 160% of own magic attack. Grants an extend buff duration by 2 turns buff to a designated ally, grants all allies an increased damage resist level 2 buff for 2 turns, okay? So this is all really good. The thing that changes right here for this skill when you have her skill card on is this middle skill right here. Normally it says grants an extend buff duration by 1 turn. So normally when people have a buff and it has 1 turn, then this will extend it by 1 more turn, making it 2 turns, right? So you'll get 2 turns out of a buff normally, but because this says extend buff duration by 2 turns, that's from the skill card, now you'll have a buff for 3 turns. Hopefully that math makes sense to you guys, but yeah, it extends your buff, so now you have it for not just 1 turn, not just 2 turns, but 3 turns, which is really nice when you use this skill. So extending buff durations, granting healing, and also giving damage resist by 25%, a very, very good skill. And then for her special skill, Dream of Recovery, grants all allies HP recovery equal to 230% of own magic attack, which is a massive amount of healing. Grants all allies an increased defense, level 2 buff for 2 turns, which is really good. And then after resurrection, restores the HP of a designated ally to 30%, okay? So the thing about Mimosa is, while the special skill is technically better when it just comes to healing and giving defense, right? That 140% defense is insane. I would recommend actually leveling up skill 2 first before you do your special skill, because you get to use your skill 2 more often. All right. And if you do the talents right, you also could run the talent that reduces the skill 2 cooldown, and you have a chance to get that more often even then. So you'll get more healing out of upgrading skill 2 first, and then you want to upgrade your special skill, and then you want to upgrade your primary skill. That's the way I would do it. And then for her combined attack, like, it's good, but it's, you know, the whole point of Mimosa is to heal, so I wouldn't use it too often. Depending on the situation, PvE wise, you might use it, but PvP, I feel like you'll almost never want to use this. Grants the partner mage an increased attack level 5 buff and increases their attack by 100%, and then 50% chance to grant the partner mage an SP +1 buff. And you can increase that activation rate by an extra 30%, making it 80% that chance that you increase the SP +1. But I mean, it's just not, I don't know. It's not that great in my opinion. And then at level 5, it becomes another SP +1, so SP +2. It could be okay for like if you partnered her with Yami and you had the skill fully leveled up, but Blue Season 1 Yami, because he gives himself SP back, and that could be kind of cool. But other than that, I don't really see a lot of uses for the combined attack, so this is the one I would level up the last. Like, so I know I said skill 1 last, but I technically go skill 2, special skill, skill 1, then combined skill for leveling. And then her passive restores 50% of an ally's HP when they're resurrected if you have the passive up when you get her to LR. So that's just nice as well. So instead of having the 30% that it says right here, it actually becomes 50%, which is really cool. And then as for skill cards, her skill card, besides making this a duration of 2 turns as opposed to 1 right here on skill 2, it also gives a 20% chance to grant all allies remove 1 debuff upon using skill 2, which is really nice as well. So in PvP, that could remove like a mobility down or a speed down or a time stop or, you know, whatever is going on right now with the meta from Julius and Valtos and all that other stuff. This could help with that. So she's actually really viable right now in PvP if you have her skill card. Her skill card, I would say, is the best potential skill card for her right now. Outside of that skill card, you could run Breath of Darkness. So what this is going to do is it's going to apply 10 to 20% increased all attack. That means magic attack as well. And since her healing scales off magic attack on her skills, that will increase the amount that you heal. So that's a good option for a skill card, a generic skill card that you could potentially get. And then another skill card most people probably have is the SR Mimosa skill card. And so what this does is it applies a 10 to 18% increased magic attack to yourself for 1 turn upon using skill 2. And her skill 2 also scales off magic attack, and it's the AoE heal that I recommended leveling up. This would work really, really well with the UR Mimosa for skill 2. So those are kind of the 2 skill cards I would run besides her main skill card if you do not have it. Then in terms of gear, I promised that we would get here and talk about this. Magic attack is what you're going to want, as much of it as you can get. That way you can heal as much as possible. Another option besides going all magic attack gear, which is what I have here, if you look at the main stat, all of them have magic attack, right? Every single piece of gear here has magic attack. Another option you could do besides going all magic attack is going for like 2 pieces of defensive gear in here. If you're worried about your Mimosa dying, because she could potentially get 1 shot in PvP. It's not super easy, but it can happen. It's not unheard of, right? So another option would be to run like 2 pieces of defense gear in here somewhere. Would be my recommendation, but I really like running all magic attack, and I feel like my Mimosa is defensive enough with the other characters I run who kind of make up for it with giving barriers and stuff like that. So I feel like I don't really need defense on Mimosa right now, at least with the current meta. And then besides the main stat of magic attack, if you guys can get substats that also have magic attack, that's like golden. That's going to help you out to heal even more. Ideally, you get magic attack substats that have a percentage here. So you see how this attack has a percentage of 3.36%. Percents are always better than just a base number being added because this multiplies the number that you already have by that percentage. Whereas just having a base number just adds that much more to it. Okay, so if you can get a magic attack piece of gear with magic attack substats, that's the way to go. I don't have the best gear here yet. Eventually, that's like really optimizing late game stuff. You probably won't do that right away, but eventually you want to do that. And then as for subsets that you want to have for sets, Ancient Mage's Relics is a solid one because it increases your magic attack by 220%. You could go for the 4 set, but it's really not worth it because it only increases damage dealt, and Mimosa is not a damage dealer, so I would not do that. And then for the defense set, this is just to give her a little bit more defense since I don't have any defense gear on her, and this just increases my defense by 250. Once again, I wouldn't go for the 4 set. It's just a pain in the butt to go for the 4 set. And then another 2 set here of attack and magic attack. This is the best set like I have on her. Ominous Gear, I really, really like this because it increases her magic attack by 7%, which is amazing. Once again, wouldn't worry about getting the 4 set because it just increases damage dealt. So those are kind of the 3 sets I would go with, something like that. That's going to give you basically magic attack and a little bit of defense on your sets here. Okay, so magic attack as your main stat, and then go for those sets. And that will maximize your healing, maximize your survivability, and maximize your overall use with Season 1 Mimosa. Now let's talk about enhancement. Should you guys be enhancing her? Okay, I do have her enhanced at level 1, literally because I got a copy of her when I was pulling for no other reason. I didn't use a versatile mage piece or anything like that. If we look at her enhancement level 2, it grants a 10% reduced damage taken buff, which could be nice and help her with survivability, especially in the current meta. That could be really, really good. Okay, And then if we look at her enhanced passive for level 5, grants 10% reduced damage taken when attacking, grants a SP +1 buff. And then also she gets 3 speed added to 95. That does absolutely nothing for her because her speed is so freaking low. There's just no point in that. So you could absolutely dupe her because this is good. The 10% reduced damage, which you get at level 2, but then the when attacking grants a SP +1 buff. That's really nice because that just means you're going to get more chances to use your ultimate to revive and to do more healing, which could potentially help you in the meta. But overall, I don't think it's going to be anything too like crazy to dupe her out. So if I were to recommend anything, I would recommend getting to dupe level 2. If you get to dupe level 2, that reduced damage is there and you're golden. And that's going to help her survivability. And I wouldn't really worry about getting her to dupe level 5 unless you're just a crazy whale. But like, there's other characters that are going to be more important right now to fully dupe out, like Julius and Noelle, who are a lot better when you fully dupe them. Like Julius, when you fully dupe him, he revives with 100% health, right? So that's way more important and way better. And then if we go and look at the talents for Mimosa. So the talents for Mimosa, I already have some of them done here. What you are going to want is Magic Attack. Magic Attack is going to, once again, increase the amount of healing. So that's what you want. And then you want grants 2.5% increased crit rate at the start of a wave. It doesn't really matter. You could go for that one or you could go for this, but this is only for a boss. So like that kind of left me with the option of going for crit rate. But if you were going to take on a boss, I guess, you could use this for PvE. But in terms of PvP, this is what I wanted. And then on defense, you just want the flat defense plus 20% buff. That's going to be helpful to keep her alive. And then you also want the grants defense plus 4% and crit resist plus 2% at the start of a wave, because once again, you're trying to keep her alive. And then over here, we have the skills that I was talking about before. We have HP recovery received. You can increase how much HP she's getting back. And then you have grants debuff immunity for 1 turn upon resisting damage successfully, because she can resist damage with her special. That could be useful as well. But the one I would actually recommend, I'm going to switch it to it eventually, is Mage's Blessing, where you have a 20% chance to grant a reduced skill 2 cooldown by 1 turn buff at the start of a turn. Like I was saying, if you are focusing on leveling up her skill 2, then this will probably be the way to go. Eventually I'll get there and I'll get that one. And then I would also go for the damage resist plus 10%, because these two are going to give her the most amount of healing and most amount of survivability. So even though I don't have them unlocked yet, I'll be unlocking them here in a second. I'll go ahead and put them there so they're there for later. And whenever you like move around these locked talents, just in case you didn't know, if you go out and save what you did, even though you don't have them unlocked, they'll stay in the position you had them in. So a nice little thing. So even if you're not ready to do talents yet, you can prepare and put them there. That way you don't have to come back and like look up a video for which talents to use. Okay. And then besides that, her teams that she could fit on, she's really, really versatile, right? Especially if you are lacking other characters. So here's one potential team. I use this team all the time for PvE because I really like having 2 green characters, a red and a blue. These two really complement each other nicely. Having the barriers plus the healing is insane. Like this team almost never dies, and then I just let Julius and Noelle kind of do their thing as attackers. She works really, really well. You could run, in place of Mimosa right here, you could run Charmy, but I feel like actually Mimosa works better in this particular scenario for the burst healing. Because even if you take a lot of damage, then you just barrier with one of these guys, and then you don't have to worry about dying before you get to your healing turn, because you have the barriers to protect you up until the point where you can do the burst healing. That's why Charmy is so good though, is like when you don't have barriers, she will continuously heal your allies even when it's not her turn, which is why Charmy is a little bit more meta than Mimosa right now. Besides this team with Mimosa, that's more of a PvE team, right? You could run it in PvP too. I run it in PvP, but it won't work very well against a Valtos team. So a team that has Valtos like and is way faster than you, it won't work against. But you could run this in PvP as well and have it work. But besides that, another team with Mimosa that you could run is like an all green team. And so right here we have Radius for the barrier. We still have Noelle on this team for the barrier, but you could switch out Noelle if you have this character, and you could go Raya.
Gotta help friend.
Okay. Right. And so you could run this potential team in PvP, but once again, you run into the problem of being slower. Okay. So you could almost switch out like Radius for Valtos, and then it would work out pretty good. But I like this team as like a defensive nuker team if you're able to survive, because Radius is pretty fast. He has pretty good speed if we look at it. go down and look at his speed right here, 100 speed. Like, it's not terrible for a defender type mage. So he can be pretty fast. He can get his barrier, hopefully maybe before you take attacks from the other team. And even if your team dies, like, Licht has immortality, so you're fine with that. So basically the only people that could die on this team is Raya or Mimosa, and ideally you have Mimosa at Enhancement level 2, where she'll have the extra damage resist, and she'll survive whatever hits people throw at her. So then basically you can just use her to revive Raya, and as a defensive team, even if you're slower, you'll still be able to use the Licht Raya combo in the end. And if this guy right here, Radius, is fast enough, you don't have to worry about anybody dying, because then he'll barrier and protect everybody. So this is a good potential green team. It'll also help you in PvE for clearing dungeons and stuff like that. So those are kind of the two teams I would run with Mimosa. I have been running this team quite a bit more in PvP. I have tried it quite a bit, and I will say it struggles against speed teams, but it does work fairly well for taking on teams that have this Noelle, for teams that have this Julius, and don't have a Valtos. Like, if they have Lotus in place of Valtos, you can beat a Lotus team. So this team works pretty well. Anyways, guys, that is it for the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.
Maybach.